Chapter 26. Adriana. Adriana still wasn't used to the idea that a maid was supposed to be cleaning up after them while they stayed at the hotel. She had been cleaning up after herself most of her life. A maid was a complete luxury. Adriana put her new robe on the proper hook in the closet with all the other clothes Mrs. Matron had ordered for her. The woman had ensured Adriana would have everything she needed to fit into her new world while staying in a conservative style. Adriana was grateful, especially when she had seen how the other women in the family dressed. Mrs. Matron had also thoughtfully provided for Adriana's mother and sisters. Eyeing Parker's clothes draped over a chair, Adriana scooped them up to put them away as well. She stepped on the plush carpet towards the closet when she felt a paper under her foot. Adriana picked it up with an empty envelope from the floor. She frowned. Perhaps Parker had accidentally dropped it? Opening the paper to determine if it was his, Adriana's eyes scanned the letter. She gave an involuntary gasp, dropping the clothes as the written words registered. Parker's father had decided not to allow Parker to continue in the family business. He had essentially disinherited his son. "Are you ready to join everyone?" asked Parker as he adjusted his shirt cuff. He stopped abruptly as he saw what Adriana had been reading. His features hardened as he took the paper and envelope from her trembling fingers. "I hadn't intended for you to see this." Adriana stared at the floor. She felt a little lightheaded. What had started as a lovely Christmas morning was now turning into a possible nightmare. She clasped her hands so tightly together they hurt. Adriana managed to whisper a question. "When did you get the letter?" "Yesterday." Parker shoved the offending paper into the envelope before putting it in a drawer, as if hiding it would make any difference. "Just before I learned my father had passed away and we went to the hospital." Yesterday. He had known while he was making promises in the car to read books with their future children, she reflected. A hollow feeling permeated her chest. Had he lied to her? This perfect fairy tale husband of hers had known the premise of their marriage was null and void, yet had continued to make promises of teaching her to surf and see the ocean. "It doesn't make any difference," stated Parker. Adriana looked at him in absolute shock. Not make any difference? His whole reason for marriage was gone. Where did it leave her? What was she supposed to do? Adriana tripped over her words, her voice shaking. "Mrs. Matron was very clear why you need marry, and what my role would be. She said this was to keep your work. Your father took away the work, the job, so he also takes away the reason you marry me." Her uncles had gone home. Their flights had left last night. Her mother and sisters were relying on her. Adriana bit her lip as she waited to see what he might say. "You're right," a grim Parker said. "My father did take my previous reasons for marrying you away." He was going to send her back. Adriana closed her eyes, dragging in a breath to try to steady herself. For a moment, she wished she had never met him. Better to be ignorant of how wonderful a marriage and husband could be than to have all her hopes ripped away by cruel fate. "If this had happened a week ago, I would be backing out of the marriage," confessed Parker. "I will admit I had no intentions of getting married or having kids. It wasn't something I had thought about doing before my father's ultimatum." Adriana opened her eyes to warily watch him. He held her future in his hands. "Things have changed. Both our circumstances have changed. I was thinking," began Parker again after a brief hesitation, "if you want to stay, we might try to figure out this situation together. It's true my initial reason is gone. That doesn't mean your initial reason has changed. I want to help you." Adriana thought over his words. "You would help me by letting me and my family stay?" "Yes," agreed Parker. "Would I still be your wife? Do you still want a child?" she wondered. "What am I to do for you?" "Exactly what you did yesterday." Parker struggled to clarify. He came forward, taking her hands into his. It was nice having you there, supporting me. I haven't had much of that in my life. I would like to support you as well." "How?" Adriana noticed he had not clarified his position on having a wife or child, other than he had not wanted one in recent history. Maybe he still didn't want them. "Maybe I'm going about this the wrong way," sighed Parker. "You want to stay here in America, right?" "Yes," slowly agreed Adriana. "Very much so." "Do you want to be married to me? Or did you agree just because your uncles forced you to?" Parker studied her intently. "Marriage is very important in my culture," ventured Adriana. "I have been hoping for a good marriage. I hoped we would have a good marriage together. I like you." "I like you as well," softly stated Parker. "I would like to stay married, not because we were forced into it, but because we choose to be married." Adriana had a tentative smile. "I would like that." "Good," nodded Parker. "Then that's what we will do." Parker gently cupped her face in his hands and gave her a sweet kiss. Adriana felt it was over far too soon. She searched for something to say. "Can we still try the surfboarding?" "Absolutely," said Parker with a smile. "Once the weather turns warm enough, I will happily teach you and your sisters all about surfing." Adriana brushed an imaginary piece of lint off of Parker's shirt. "I like it when we plan for our future together." "So do I," admitted Parker. He drew in a breath. "I suppose we ought to go downstairs and join the rest of the family for Christmas. I have a present for each of us, for the exchange. Maybe next year we can go shopping together." Adriana gave him a pleased smile. Perhaps she had no reason to worry about Parker and their marriage. Perhaps he had meant what he said in the cab about reading to their children. It was a heartening thought. Parker grabbed their two gifts and held out a hand to her. Adriana happily slipped her hand in his as they made their way to the Ramsley family activities. Cora. Cora scanned the room to be certain she had not forgotten anything. "Mom?" asked Oliver. "Can we go now?" She gave him a distracted smile. "Of course." "The key card for the room?" quietly said Nick, picking up on the fact that Cora was trying to remember everything. He already had his hands full with two large gift bags. So did Oliver. Cora scooped the key card off the dresser. "I think we're ready." She picked up her own small gift bag and followed the boys out of the room. They had almost made it to the elevators before they were interrupted. "Cora, could I have a word with you?" asked Gerrit as he approached them with his own gift for the family exchange. Cora could feel Nick stiffen beside her. Oliver was too oblivious to the tension, only slightly curious as to why his uncles had stopped them. "Right now?" "I would appreciate it," replied Gerrit. "We should discuss the estate." "It's Christmas," protested Cora. "The boys are about to exchange gifts with their cousins." "It shouldn't take very long," insisted Gerrit. Cora held Gerrit's gaze in a contest of wills for as long as she could before looking away. "You boys go downstairs. I'll be along shortly." "We can stay," offered Nick, keeping an eye on Gerrit. "Nick," objected Oliver with disappointment. "Boys, you should listen to your mother," stated Gerrit. "Mom?" questioned Nick once more. "It's fine," Cora insisted with an unfelt smile. "I will see both of you downstairs." She waited until Nick and Oliver had entered the elevator, the doors shutting, before rounding on Gerrit with a glare. This was unnecessary. Cora tried to be calm, even though she was upset by the interruption. "It's Christmas. Whatever we must talk about could have waited until tomorrow." "I don't want to fight about this, Cora," a tired Gerrit replied. "It's been a long weekend, and I just want to get this conversation over with." Cora folded her arms. "Well?" "In private?" Gerrit frowned. "We don't need to be talking in public where we can be overheard." Pulling out her key card, Cora led the way to her hotel room. She opened the door and waited for Gerrit to enter before raising an eyebrow. "There's no need to have an attitude, Cora," mildly remonstrated Gerrit as he took out an envelope from his pocket. How many times had Gerrit, Oscar, or especially Mary, told her to mind her attitude. How many times had they made her feel at fault, told her to behave, to try harder, to be better, that her concerns weren't important, that she had to be a good wife to Nate, a good Ramsley, and uphold the family name, to ignore any bad behavior on the part of her husband, to not make a fuss. Cora bit the inside of her cheek to prevent herself from responding, an old habit which had formed a number of scars inside her mouth. Here, Gerrit thrust the papers at her. "What is this?" questioned Cora as she took them. "A copy of Nate's will," explained Gerrit. "You can have your lawyer look it over, but I have been trying to find a way to break it, and my lawyers haven't succeeded." "Break it?" echoed Cora, looking up from the blur of legal jargon she didn't understand. "Why would you want to break Nate's will?" Gerrit gave her a pitying look, one he often wore when he talked to her. Cora felt all of 10 years old and so very stupid when he looked at her like that. "It's not very complimentary to you or Oliver. I tried to talk Nate out of it, but he was adamant. I thought I might be able to get a court to circumvent it, but the lawyers told me it would be a waste of time." "What did he do?" whispered Cora with a sinking feeling. "He left everything in trust to Nick," baldly stated Gerrit. "As executor of the estate, I'm supposed to liquidate all assets and put them in the trust. The trust is to remain intact until Nick is 21 years old. Nothing can be taken out of it. Please tell me you have a separate bank account." "No," replied Cora, shaking her head. "Nate never saw the need for me to have a separate account." Nate had not seen the need to make his account a joint account either, her mind reminded her. Cora pushed the thought away. She had not used Nate's money since his passing. She simply didn't know his PIN codes. Gerrit sighed, pulling a card out of his wallet. "Here, you can use this for the moment. However, I'm going through a bit of a financial crisis with the FBI freezing the hotel chain's assets, so don't spend too much." "I don't want the card." Cora eyed the piece of plastic. She knew it would come with strings. Everything from Gerrit always had conditions attached. "You need money to live." An impatient Gerrit continued to offer the credit card. "By law, I must sell your home, the car, the furniture. All the proceeds are to go to Nick's trust fund. There is nothing else, Cora. All I can do is try to help you out. You can stay here with the boys for a while until we get you situated in a new house somewhere. As for Livingston Academy, the only good thing is that Nate paid up for the rest of the year." Cora stood still, thinking. She could believe Nate had done this to her. It was his last laugh from beyond the grave, making a pauper out of her and Ollie. His last way of controlling their lives. No doubt the trust fund for Nick would have conditions on it as well. She was about to lose her home. Correction, Nate's home. He had picked it out. He had picked out the car. Even the furniture. Honestly, she would be glad to be rid of the vehicle. Cora had never liked it. While the house had never been what she would prefer, she would miss the place as it was where she had raised her boys. Nick and Oliver would have a difficult time understanding not being able to stay in their home. It would take a lot of adjusting. Things were changing. She was changing, Cora decided, straightening her shoulders. She met Gerrit's gaze. "Keep your card. Ben gave me an emergency credit card a little while ago. I can use it." She trusted Ben. Comprehension lit Gerrit's face, his features hardening as he put the credit card away. "Ben was helping you. Were you really going to leave Nate?" Cora decided it was best not to answer. "He suspected you might." Gerrit's voice was cold as he took a step closer to her, invading Cora's space. "You really are an ungrateful wretch. Nate was a great person, the best man I knew. He deserved the finest of everything, yet here you were, plotting behind his back, planning on running away while pretending to be happily married to him. Were you going to take the boys away from him? Nate loved his sons." "I think this conversation is over," said Cora in a firm voice. She quickly stepped back, opening the door to the hall. "You can leave." "You can go begging to Ben," spat out Gerrit as he made his way past her. "Forget living off my generosity. I, at least, have some family loyalty." Family loyalty and no viable options were what had made Cora stay for far longer than she should have, reflected Cora. She closed the door, locking it, then leaning against it. She was shaking. Cora wrapped her arms around herself, hugging them tight to her body. She drew in a deep breath in an attempt to steady her nerves. Nate had had the final laugh, doing this to her and the boys. The inheritance would no doubt eventually drive a wedge between Nick and Oliver. It was cruel to uproot the boys, making them lose their childhood home like this. There was little she could do about it, Cora supposed. She would need to contact a lawyer. Not Nate's lawyer either. She didn't know how long Gerrit would give her before he started to sell the house and larger items. Cora should have asked him. How was she going to have Henry as a guest now? It just wasn't possible. Part of her was relieved she couldn't offer her soon-to-be non-existent guest room to Henry. Another part wondered how he was going to get good care after his surgery. She would have to tell Henry. Cora knew he would likely offer his help, and she would likely end up accepting some of it. She would also have to tell Ben of the developments. Ben would help. He probably knew a good lawyer. What a mess. Cora looked at the small gift she had purchased for the gift exchange. Gerrit had certainly ruined the day. She had been looking forward to the Christmas celebration. This weekend she felt like she was finally making friends among the Ramsley ladies. Other than at the boys' school, she rarely had the chance to talk to other people. Now the day would be overshadowed by the fact Cora needed to try to sort out her living arrangements. Cora sighed. Staying in her hotel room wasn't going to solve her troubles. She needed to go downstairs and find Ben. Then she could put together some sort of plan to fix things. Perhaps there was a silver lining in all this. She didn't ever have to talk to Oscar or Gerrit again. Oscar was in prison. Whatever lawyer she retained could deal with Gerrit on her behalf. It was time to start over, to have a fresh beginning without Nate. These thoughts cheered her a little. Feeling somewhat better, Cora decided it was time to join the luncheon downstairs. If you enjoyed this chapter of The Wedding, Book 10 of the Ramsley Brothers series, look for the next chapter on YouTube. Thank you for listening.